The bridge of the Earth defense ship Valiant was quiet except for the soft beeping of computers and the gentle hum of engines. Commander Kyle Bennett sat in his chair, looking over some boring supply reports on his screen. He had been on patrol duty for 3 weeks now, and nothing interesting had happened. Space was big and empty, and most days felt the same. Lieutenant Maria Torres sat at the communications station, listening to the usual radio chatter from nearby space stations. She was thinking about her family back on Earth when suddenly her screen lit up with something strange. Her whole body went stiff, and her fingers started moving fast across the keyboard. "Commander, I'm getting something weird here," Maria said, her voice tight with worry. "It's a distress signal, but it's not in any human language I know." Kyle stood up quickly and walked over to her station. Other crew members turned their heads to listen. The signal played through the speakers and everyone could hear it. The voice sounded desperate and scared, even though nobody could understand the words. There was static and crackling, but the fear in that voice was clear. "Can we translate it?" Kyle asked. Senior Tactical Officer Greg Palmer was already working on it from his station. His fingers flew across the controls as he tried to clean up the signal. Chief Engineer Lisa Hayes checked where the signal was coming from. "It's coming from the Kepler 442 system," Lisa said, looking at her screen with wide eyes. "That's about 6 light years away from us in neutral space." Kyle felt his heart beat faster. Neutral space meant it was far from Earth's protected areas. Whatever was happening there, they might be the only ones close enough to help. The translation computer worked for a few more seconds, and then words started appearing on the main screen. Kyle read them and felt his blood turn cold. The message was from the Zalthine, a species that humans had met 3 years ago. They were peaceful traders who had been friendly to humans from the first day. Now their colony on Kepler 442b was under attack. "They're being bombed from space," Maria whispered as she read more of the message. "Their shields are breaking down. They're asking for anyone who can hear them to please help. They say they have children in the colony." The bridge went silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The Zalthine had welcomed humans into the galactic community with open arms. They had shared their technology and their friendship freely. Now they were dying and they were calling for help. Kyle didn't need to think long about what to do. "Maria, send an emergency message to Fleet Command right now. Tell them we're going to help the Zalthine. Tell them we need backup as fast as they can send it." "Yes, sir," Maria said, her fingers already typing. "Lisa, I need maximum power to our faster-than-light drives. How fast can we get there?" Lisa checked her numbers quickly. "At full power, we can make it in about 45 minutes, Commander." "Make it 30 if you can," Kyle said. He turned to the pilot. "Lieutenant Jake Morrison, plot the fastest course to Kepler 442b. Don't worry about being gentle with the engines." "On it?" "Sir?" Jake said, his hands already moving across the flight controls. Greg Palmer spoke up from the weapons station. His voice was careful and concerned. "Sir, we're just one ship. We have no idea what's waiting for us there. It could be a whole fleet attacking them." Kyle turned to look at Greg. He understood the concern. Going into an unknown situation without backup was dangerous. But he also knew they couldn't just sit there while innocent people died. "You're right, Greg. We don't know what we're flying into," Kyle said firmly. "But the Zalthine answered our first message to the stars with friendship and kindness. They helped us when we were new to space travel. I'm not going to leave them to die alone while we wait for backup that might come too late." Greg nodded slowly. He didn't argue anymore. Around the bridge, other crew members showed their agreement with small nods and determined faces. The Valiant's engines began to power up, making the whole ship vibrate slightly. Kyle could feel the energy building as Lisa pushed the faster-than-light drives to their limits. On the main screen, he watched as the stars began to stretch and blur. "All hands, this is the commander," Kyle said into the ship-wide communication system. "We're responding to a distress call from our friends, the Zalthine. They're under attack and they need help. We're going in without backup for now, but Fleet Command knows where we are. I won't lie to you. This could be dangerous. But these people helped us when we needed it, and now it's our turn to help them. Man your stations and prepare for combat. This is what we trained for. Let's show them what humans can do. All over the ship, crew members rushed to their positions. In the engine room, Lisa's team checked every system and made sure everything was running perfectly. In the weapons bay, Greg's gunners loaded the railguns and armed the missiles. The medical bay prepared for possible casualties. Everyone knew their job and did it without hesitation. Maria turned to Kyle with a worried look. Commander, I'm still trying to raise the Zalthine colony on the radio, but I'm not getting any response now. The last message was 5 minutes ago. Kyle felt a knot form in his stomach. No response could mean a lot of things, none of them good. Keep trying. Maybe their communications are just damaged. The ship shook slightly as it entered faster than light speed. Space outside the windows turned into a blur of light and color. They were committed now. There was no turning back. Jake checked his navigation screen. 28 minutes to arrival, Commander. Good work, Jake, Kyle said. He sat back down in his chair and gripped the armrests. 28 minutes felt like forever when people were dying. Kyle thought about the first time he had met a Zalthine. It was during a diplomatic meeting on Earth Station 1. The alien had been so friendly and curious about humans. They had talked for hours about their different worlds and cultures. The Zalthine had seemed amazed by Earth's harsh environment and how humans had survived there. Your world would kill most species within days, the Zalthine had said with wonder. But you don't just survive. You thrive. You must be very strong. Kyle hadn't felt strong that day. He had just felt grateful that someone was being kind to his species. Now he realized what that Zalthine had meant. Humans came from a dangerous world, and it had made them tough. Maybe that toughness was exactly what the Zalthine needed right now. The minutes crawled by slowly. The crew stayed focused on their tasks, but Kyle could feel the tension on the bridge. Everyone was wondering the same thing. What would they find when they arrived? Would they be in time to help, or would they only find ruins and bodies? Finally, Jake spoke up. 5 minutes to arrival, Commander. Dropping out of faster than light in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. All hands, battle stations, Kyle ordered. Shields to maximum. Weapons ready? When we drop out of light speed, I want to know everything about what's happening there within 10 seconds. Yes, sir, multiple voices answered. The ship began to slow down. The blur outside the windows started to resolve back into normal stars. Kyle took a deep breath and prepared himself for whatever they were about to face. Somewhere ahead, the Zalthine were fighting for their lives. The Valiant was coming, and whoever was attacking them was about to learn a hard lesson about humans. They were about to learn that you don't attack the friends of a species from a death world and expect to walk away unpunished. The Valiant dropped out of faster-than-light speed at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, and what they saw made everyone on the bridge go silent. 4 huge ships hung in space above the green planet below. They were dark and mean-looking, covered with sharp angles and weapon ports. Bright beams of energy shot down from these ships, hitting the planet's surface again and again. Each hit made a flash of light where the colony's shields tried to block the attack. Reading major damage to their defensive shields, Greg said from his station, his voice tight. Those ships matched the profile of Kravix-class raiders. Intelligence reports say they're slavers and pirates. They steal resources and kidnap people to sell. Kyle felt anger rise in his chest. Slavers. They were attacking a peaceful colony to steal people and resources. What about life signs on the planet? Lisa checked her scanners quickly. I'm reading about 15,000 Zalthine in the colony. Their shields are down to 23% power and still dropping fast. As they watched, another wave of energy beams hit the colony. This time, some of the beams broke through the weakened shields and struck the surface. Small explosions bloomed on the planet where buildings had been hit. Sir, the lead enemy ship is hailing us, Maria said from communications. Put them on screen, Kyle ordered. The main view screen changed to show a face that made several crew members gasp. It was reptilian, covered in dark green scales with yellow eyes that looked cold and cruel. The creature's mouth, full of sharp teeth, pulled back in what might have been a smile. "Unknown vessel," the alien said, its words translated into English by the computer. "You are interfering in a illegal salvage operation. Leave now or we will destroy you." Kyle stood up from his chair and walked closer to the screen. His voice came out hard and angry. "This is Commander Kyle Bennett of the Earth defense ship Valiant. You are attacking an ally of humanity. Stop your attack right now and leave, or you will face consequences." The Kravix commander laughed, a hissing sound that made Kyle's skin crawl. "Humanity? The baby species that just learned to leave their planet 10 years ago? You have one small ship. We have 4 large ones. You can't count, primate. You should run home before you get hurt." Kyle felt himself smile, but it wasn't a friendly smile. "I've done the math. And the answer is that you're about to have a very bad day. Greg, target their weapons. Show these pirates what happens when they mess with our friends." The Valiant might have been smaller than the Kravix ships, but it was built by humans. And humans knew about war. They had spent thousands of years fighting each other on Earth, learning how to build better weapons, better defenses, better tactics. Every battle humans had ever fought had taught them something new about how to win. The ship's weapons came online fast. Railguns based on old Earth tank cannons but upgraded with gravity technology aimed at the enemy ships. These guns could throw chunks of tungsten metal at speeds close to the speed of light. Missile pods opened up, releasing dozens of smart missiles that could think for themselves and dodge. Enemy fire? The first attack caught the Kravix completely by surprise. They were used to fighting weak traders and defenseless colonists. They had never fought anyone who could really fight back. 2 of the Kravix ships lost their main weapons immediately when the railgun shots punched huge holes through their hulls. Alarms started blaring on those ships as air rushed out of the holes and systems failed. The Kravix ships tried to fire back, but they were slow and clumsy compared to the Valiant. Their shots were aimed at where the human ship had been, not where it was going to be. "Evasive pattern Delta," Kyle ordered calmly. "Keep us between them and the colony. Don't let any shots get past us to hit the planet." Jake Morrison, the pilot, was born and raised on Earth where the gravity was strong enough to crush most aliens. His reflexes were faster than any Kravix could dream of. He twisted the ship through a spinning roll that would have knocked a Kravix crew unconscious from the forces involved. The Valiant dodged a plasma blast by just a few meters, so close that the sensors detected the heat from the shot passing by. Then Jake lined them up perfectly for another attack. "Firing solution ready, Commander." "Fire," Kyle said. More railgun rounds slammed into the second Kravix ship. This time they hit the engines, and that ship went dark as its power systems failed. It started to drift in space, powerless and helpless. "Direct hit on Raider 2, Greg announced with satisfaction in his voice. "They're dead in space, sir. No engines, no weapons." But Kyle knew they couldn't keep this up forever. They were still outnumbered. The 2 remaining Kravix ships were starting to work together now, coordinating their attacks. One would shoot while the other tried to get into position for a kill shot. The Valiant was good, but it was still just 1 ship against 2. Warning lights started flashing on Lisa's engineering console. "Commander, shields are down to 60%. We're taking damage." Kyle was about to order another attack pattern when Maria suddenly shouted from her station. Her voice was excited and relieved. "Commander, I'm reading multiple faster-than-light signatures incoming." "It's our fleet, sir." Earth Fleet Command sent reinforcements. Kyle felt relief wash over him like cold water on a hot day. On the main screen, space began to ripple and distort in 12 different places. Then, one by one, human warships appeared. They were beautiful, deadly, and very welcome. The biggest ship, the Earth Defense Ship Warrior, took position at the front of the new formation. It was twice the size of the Valiant and bristling with weapons. Kyle had never been so happy to see another ship in his life. "Valiant, this is Admiral Patricia Clark," a voice came through the speakers. Kyle recognized the Admiral's voice immediately. She was a legend in the fleet, a veteran of the Mars Rebellion and other conflicts. "I see you started the party without us, Commander. Nice shooting. Now let's finish these pirates off." The Kravix raiders, who had been confident just moments ago, suddenly realized they had made a terrible mistake. They weren't facing one outdated human ship anymore. They were facing 13 modern warships, all crewed by humans who were very angry about the attack on their friends, Admiral Clark's voice came through on the fleet command channel. "All ships, weapons free. Target their engines and life support systems. I want prisoners. We need to question them about who sent them and why." The human fleet moved like a school of fish, each ship perfectly coordinated with the others. The Thunderbolt and Lightning, two fast attack ships, swept in from opposite sides. Their combined fire hit the third Kravix raider from two directions at once, overwhelming its shields in seconds. That ship's engines exploded in a bright flash, leaving it drifting and damaged. The Guardian, a heavy defensive ship, moved to position itself directly over the Zalthine colony. Its powerful shields extended down to reinforce the colony's failing defenses. The energy beams from the last Kravix ship now had to get through the Guardian's military-grade shields before they could hurt anyone on the planet. The Guardian's defensive weapons also started, shooting down any missiles or plasma bolts that got too close to the colony on the Valiant's bridge. Kyle watched with fierce pride as the human fleet showed why Earth had earned its reputation. Every crew member on every ship did their job with perfect precision. They moved and fought like they had practiced this 1,000 times because they had. Humans trained constantly for combat because they came from a world where everything was trying to kill them. That training showed now. The last Kravix ship tried to run. Its engines powered up as it attempted to escape into faster-than-light speed. But the human ships had already thought of that. 3 destroyers moved to block its escape route while the Warrior targeted its faster-than-light drive with a precise shot. The shot hit perfectly. The Kravix ship's drive exploded in a shower of sparks and debris. Now it couldn't run, couldn't fight, and couldn't do anything except sit there and wait. The Kravix commander's face appeared on screen again, but he looked very different now. The arrogance was gone, replaced by obvious fear. His yellow eyes were wide and his scales had gone pale. "Wait," he said quickly. "We surrender. We didn't know the Zalthine were protected by humans. We made a mistake." Kyle stepped forward, his face hard as stone. "You knew they were peaceful. You knew they had families and children. You knew they couldn't defend themselves against you. That's exactly why you attacked them. You're not sorry you attacked. You're sorry you got caught." Admiral Clark's voice cut through the channel, cold and commanding. "Kravix vessels, power down all weapons and engines immediately. Prepare to be boarded by our Marines. You will be arrested and tried for attempted genocide, piracy, and slavery. If any of you resist, we will destroy your ships without hesitation. You have 30 seconds to comply." One by one, the 4 Kravix ships went completely dark. Their weapons powered down, their engines shut off, and their shields dropped. They were surrendering completely. Kyle could see small ships launching from the human fleet. These were Marine transport shuttles, carrying soldiers who would board the Kravix ships and take the crews prisoner. Other shuttles headed toward the planet, carrying engineers and medical supplies to help the colony. Down on the surface of Kepler 442b, the Zalthine colonists stood in the damaged streets of their settlement and looked up at the sky with wonder and relief. Just minutes ago, they had been certain they were going to die. Now, human ships filled the space above their world like guardian angels made of metal and light. Captain Helen Price commanded the first shuttle to land in the colony. She was a Marine officer with 10 years of experience, but she had never been to a Zalthine colony before. As the shuttle's engines powered down and the boarding ramp lowered, she got her first look at the damage. Buildings were collapsed or burning. The streets were cracked and broken. The air smelled like smoke and melted metal. Zalthine civilians were helping each other out of damaged structures, their pale blue skin covered with dust and ash. Some were injured and bleeding. Others were crying. Children clung to their parents with terrified expressions. Waiting at the landing pad was Ambassador Thren, the leader of the colony. Helen had seen pictures of him before in reports about peaceful alien species. In those pictures he had looked calm and dignified. Now his robes were torn and dirty, his face was streaked with dust and tears, and his hands were shaking. "You came," Thren said, his voice breaking with emotion. "We sent our message thinking maybe someone would hear it in a few days. We never imagined anyone would arrive so fast. You saved us." Helen walked down the ramp and stopped in front of him. She was carrying a heavy rifle and wearing combat armor, looking every bit the soldier she was. But her voice was gentle when she spoke. "Ambassador, we're humans. When our friends call for help, we come." "That's what friends do." Thren's eyes filled with tears. Behind him, other Zalthine who had gathered at the landing pad began to cry as well. Not from sadness anymore, but from relief and gratitude. More shuttles were landing now, bringing medical teams, engineers, and supplies. Human doctors immediately began helping the injured Zalthine. The aliens were surprised by how carefully and gently the humans treated them, considering humans had just been so violent in the space battle above. One young Zalthine child, no more than 6 years old in human terms, had a broken arm. She was crying in pain while her mother tried to comfort her. A human medic named Danny Cooper knelt down beside them with a medical kit. "Hey there, little one," Danny said softly. "My name is Danny. I'm going to fix your arm so it doesn't hurt anymore." "Is that okay?" The child looked at him with wide, scared eyes. She had just watched humans destroy 4 enemy ships in minutes. Now one of those scary warriors was kneeling in front of her with a kind smile. "Are you going to hurt me?" she asked in a tiny voice. Danny shook his head. "Nope, I'm going to make the pain go away. Watch this." He pulled out a small device that glowed with soft blue light. When he passed it over her arm, the pain immediately decreased. The child's eyes went wide with surprise, and she stopped crying. "See? Much better. Now I'm going to put a special wrap on your arm that will help the bone heal super fast. In a few days you'll be good as new." While Danny worked, the child's mother spoke to him in a quiet voice. "Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for saving us. We thought we were going to die." Danny kept his eyes on his work, but Helen could see his jaw tighten with anger at what had almost happened here. "You're welcome, ma'am. And those pirates won't ever hurt anyone again. We'll make sure of it." Meanwhile, back in space, Chief Engineer Lisa Hayes had boarded the colony's main control center to help repair their computer systems. She was working alongside Zalthine technicians, trying to restore power to damaged sections of the colony. The Zalthine were good with technology, but they had never seen anyone work as fast as Lisa did. "How do you process information so quickly?" one of the technicians asked, amazed. "Your fingers move faster than I can follow." Lisa smiled without looking up from her work. "Humans have really good hand-eye coordination. It's because our ancestors had to catch fast-moving prey and avoid fast-moving predators. Makes us pretty good with computers, too." She was restoring a damaged database when something caught her attention. There were files here that didn't belong. They were encrypted and hidden, but Lisa had seen military-grade hiding techniques before. She dug deeper. "Wait a second," she muttered. "What's this?" The Zalthine technician leaned over to look. "What did you find?" Lisa's expression grew serious as she worked through the encrypted data. "These are files that the Kraviks uploaded while they were attacking. They were searching your databases for something specific." Her fingers flew across the keyboard, breaking through the encryption. "They were looking for information about other colonies. Trade routes, defense systems, they were gathering intelligence." She immediately opened a communication channel to Commander Kyle Bennett, who was still aboard the Valiant. His face appeared on her screen. "Commander, you need to see this right now," Lisa said urgently. "What did you find?" Kyle asked. Lisa sent him the data files. The Kraviks weren't just attacking this colony for slaves or resources. They were conducting military reconnaissance. Look at these search parameters they were running. They wanted to know where other Zalthine colonies are located, what their defenses look like, and what the trade routes are between them. Kyle's eyes narrowed as he scanned through the data on his screen. This wasn't a random pirate raid. This was organized intelligence gathering. "There's more," Lisa continued. "According to the transmission logs, They were sending all this information back to a central command ship somewhere outside this system. This was a planned operation, Commander, military grade. Kyle immediately contacted Admiral Clark aboard the Warrior. Within minutes, Clark had assembled her senior officers for an emergency meeting. Kyle joined the meeting through a holographic projection, his image appearing in the Warrior's conference room alongside the other officers. "This changes everything," Admiral Clark said, her hands flat on the table in front of her. "If the Kraviks are conducting systematic intelligence gathering on peaceful species, they're planning something much bigger than random raids, Commander." Nathan Hughes, the Warrior's chief tactical officer, pulled up a star map on the room's main screen. Dozens of star systems were marked with red indicators. "Admiral, I pulled the records for this sector. In the past 6 months, there have been 17 reported attacks on colony worlds. We thought they were isolated incidents by different pirate groups. But what if they're all connected?" Kyle said from his holographic projection. "What if the Kravik's dominion has been systematically targeting peaceful species, testing their defenses, and building a database of easy targets?" Clark nodded slowly, her face grim. "They're preparing for a large-scale expansion campaign. They're identifying which species can fight back and which ones can't. Then they'll hit the weak ones all at once, before anyone can organize a defense." "They didn't count on one thing, though," said Nathan. "They didn't count on the Zalthine having friends who would actually fight for them." The human officers began interrogating the Kravik's prisoners who had been taken from the captured ships. At first, the pirates refused to talk. They were arrogant, thinking that the humans wouldn't do anything too harsh to them. But humans had thousands of years of experience with interrogation. They didn't need to use violence. They just needed to be smart. They separated the prisoners and told each one that the others were talking and blaming them for everything. They showed them the evidence of the intelligence gathering. They explained that attacking a human ally was now being treated as an act of war, not just piracy. Slowly, the Kravik's prisoners started to crack, each one trying to save himself by giving up information about the others. By the end of the day, the humans had learned something terrifying. The Kravik's dominion was a large military organization that controlled dozens of star systems. They viewed younger spacefaring species as resources to be exploited. For years, they had been systematically studying the newer species in this sector of space, preparing for a campaign of conquest. They would attack multiple colonies at once, overwhelm their defenses, and either enslave the population or take their resources. "They've been planning this for 3 years," Clark said to her officers after reviewing the interrogation reports. "They have target lists, attack schedules, supply chains. This is a full military operation. We need to warn the Galactic Assembly," Kyle suggested. "If the Kraviks are planning to attack multiple species at once, this could start a war that spreads across the whole sector." But Nathan shook his head. "The Assembly won't do anything, sir. I've read their charter. They have a strict non-interference policy. Each species is expected to handle its own defense. They'll share the information, sure. They might even condemn the Kraviks. But they won't actually do anything to stop them." Kyle felt frustration rise in his chest. "So they'll just let peaceful species get conquered because of some policy about non-interference?" "Most assembly species evolved on easy worlds," Clark explained. "Low gravity, perfect weather, no predators. They don't think like we do. They believe in diplomacy and patience because their environments let them develop that way. Earth didn't give us that luxury. We learned to act fast or die. Then what do we do?" Kyle asked. Clark was quiet for a moment, thinking hard. Then she looked up at her. 3 days after the battle, the human fleet remained in orbit around Kepler 442b. The colony's repairs were progressing well, with human engineers working alongside the Zalthine to rebuild damaged structures and restore systems. But Admiral Clark wasn't thinking about repairs anymore. She was thinking about the future Dot in her private office aboard the Warrior. Clark sat across from Ambassador Thren and 2 other alien ambassadors who had arrived quietly the day before. One was a Verini, a small furry species whose home world had been raided twice in the past year. The other was a Sulfic, a tall, thin species with 4 arms who had lost an entire mining colony to Kravix attacks. "Thank you for coming," Clark said to them. "I know you took a risk traveling here without telling the assembly." The Varini ambassador, whose name was Kef, made a chittering sound that the translator rendered as nervous laughter. "Risk is relative, Admiral. We risk everything by doing nothing. The Kravix have attacked us twice. Each time we reported it to the assembly. Each time they offered sympathy and called for diplomatic solutions. Meanwhile, we bury our dead and wonder when the next attack will come." The Sulfic ambassador, Rin, spoke in a voice that sounded like wind through metal pipes. "My people lost 3,000 workers when the Kravix destroyed our mining colony on Talos 7. The assembly sent investigators. They wrote a report. The report sat in a database somewhere while the Kravix sold our people as slaves. We cannot rely on the assembly anymore." Thren nodded in agreement. "The assembly was formed during peaceful times by peaceful species. It works well for trade disputes and cultural exchanges, but it was never designed to face real military threats. The assembly believes that all problems can be solved through talking and waiting. They don't understand that some enemies will take your patience as weakness." Clark leaned back in her chair. "Here's what we know from interrogating the Kravix prisoners. They have a list of 43 targets. Colony worlds of species they consider weak and profitable. They plan to attack 20 of these targets simultaneously in the next 3 months. Each target will face at least 6 Kravix warships. Most of the species on that list have fewer than 3 defensive ships total." The room went quiet as the ambassadors absorbed this information. Kef's fur stood on end with fear. Rin's 4 hands clenched into fists. Thren closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "Do you have this list?" Rin asked. Clark pulled out a data tablet and slid it across the table. The 3 ambassadors looked at it together, and Clark could see their reactions: horror, anger, fear. All 3 of their species were on the list. "We are all targeted," Kef whispered. "They plan to hit all of us at once." "Yes," Clark confirmed. "The Kravix Dominion has been planning this for years. They've studied each species carefully. They know your ship counts, your weapon capabilities, your response times. They've designed their attack plan to hit you faster than you can coordinate a defense." "The assembly must be told," Thren said. "We plan to tell them," Clark replied. "But we all know what will happen. They'll be concerned. They'll condemn the Kravix. They'll form a committee to study the issue. And while they're studying it, the attacks will happen." Rin's metallic voice carried a note of desperation. "Then what can we do? Our species don't have the military strength to fight the Kravix. We've never needed militaries before. Our worlds are peaceful. We've never fought wars." Clark stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "No, you haven't. But humans have. Earth has been at war with itself for thousands of years. We fought with swords, guns, tanks, planes, and now starships. We've learned everything there is to know about warfare because our planet forced us to. We're good at it. Maybe too good at it." She turned back to face the ambassadors. "But we've also learned something else. We've learned that the best way to prevent war is to be so ready for it that nobody wants to fight you. We call it peace through strength. And we're willing to share that knowledge with our friends." Kef leaned forward, his small eyes bright with hope. "You would help us build defenses? Teach us how to fight?" "More than that," Clark said. "We're proposing a mutual defense alliance. Any species that joins agrees to defend the others. If the Kravix attack one colony, they face the combined fleet of all alliance members. We share technology, training, and tactical knowledge. We coordinate our defenses. And we make it very clear to anyone who might attack us that they'll be facing humans and everyone else together." Thren stood up, his usual calm demeanor replaced by passionate intensity. "Zalthine will join. Without question. You saved us, and we will stand with you." Kef and Rin looked at each other, communicating in some way that Clark didn't fully understand. Then they both turned back to her. "The Varini will join," Kef said. "The Sulfic as well," Rin added, Clark felt relief wash over her. Good, now we need to present this to the Galactic Assembly. We're not asking them to choose between the Assembly and the Alliance. Species can be members of both. But we need to make them understand that this alliance is happening with or without their approval. Over the next week, word spread quietly through the younger spacefaring species. Ambassadors who had lost colonies to the Kravix started reaching out to each other. Species who had felt helpless and afraid suddenly saw hope. By the time Admiral Clark's fleet arrived at the Galactic Assembly Station, 10 species had already committed to joining the Alliance. The assembly station was huge, a massive ring structure that rotated slowly to create artificial gravity. It had been built by the older species hundreds of years ago as a neutral meeting place. 47 different species maintained embassies there, though only about 30 attended meetings regularly. When Clark, Kyle Bennett, and Ambassador Thren entered the assembly hall, they could feel the tension in the air. The older species had heard rumors about what was being proposed, and many of them were worried. Change made them uncomfortable. The assembly hall was circular, with seats arranged in tiers so everyone could see the center speaking area. Representative Quill, a tall mantis-like creature who served as the current assembly chair, stood at the central podium. His large compound eyes watched the humans and their allies enter. "This emergency session of the Galactic Assembly is now in order," Quill announced, his voice clicking and chittering before being translated. "We have heard disturbing reports of military action in the Kepler 442 system. Admiral Clark of the human military has requested permission to speak." Clark walked to the podium while Kyle and Thren took seats in the human delegation area. She looked around at all the different alien species watching her. Some looked curious. Some looked worried. Some looked hostile. "Representatives of the Galactic Assembly," Clark began. 6 days ago, we received a distress call from the Zalthine colony on Kepler 442b. They were under attack by Kravix raiders. We responded to that call and drove off the attackers. In the process, we captured several Kravix ships and prisoners. A murmur went through the hall. Some species didn't approve of the violent response, even to save lives, Clark continued. During our investigation, we discovered something alarming. The Kravix weren't conducting a simple raid. They were gathering military intelligence as part of a larger operation. We've interrogated the prisoners and learned that the Kravix Dominion is planning a major campaign of conquest against peaceful species in this sector. She pulled out a data tablet and uploaded information to the Assembly's main display screens. Lists of target species appeared, along with attack plans and schedules. 43 colony worlds are targeted for attack in the next 3 months. 20 of them will be hit simultaneously. The species on this list have minimal defenses. The Kravix expect to conquer them easily, taking resources and selling the populations as slaves. The hall erupted into shocked conversation. Representatives from the targeted species stood up, shouting questions and demands. Representatives from the older, safer species called for calm and order. Quill had to bang his gavel several times to restore quiet. "Admiral Clark, this information is deeply concerning. However, the Assembly has always maintained that each species must handle its own defense. What do you propose we do?" "I'm not asking the Assembly to do anything," Clark said firmly. "I'm here to inform you of what we are going to do. Humanity and our allies are forming a mutual defense alliance. Any species that joins agrees to defend the other members. If one is attacked, all respond. We will share defensive technology, coordinate our fleets, and make it clear that attacking any of us means facing all of us." A representative from the Calyx, an old species that had been part of the Assembly for centuries, stood up. He was crystalline, his body made of what looked like living glass. His voice chimed like bells. "You propose to militarize the younger species," he said accusingly. "Violence breeds more violence. If you respond to the Kravix with force, you will only provoke them to greater aggression. The proper response is diplomatic engagement." Clark turned to face him directly. "Representative, with respect, The Kraviks were 30 minutes away from killing 15,000 Zalthine, including 5,000 children. This wasn't a misunderstanding that could be talked through. This was attempted genocide for profit, but surely, another older representative interjected, if we open communication channels with... Ambassador Thren walked slowly to the center of the assembly hall. Every eye watched him. The Zalthine were known throughout the galaxy as gentle, peaceful beings who had never fought a war in their entire history. Seeing Thren look so emotional was shocking to many of the representatives. I have listened to this debate with growing horror, Thren said quietly, but his words carried through the silent hall. You sit here in your safe station, surrounded by comfort and security, and you lecture those who have bled about violence. You talk about diplomatic solutions while my people's bodies are still being pulled from collapsed buildings. His voice grew stronger, fueled by anger that the peaceful Zalthine rarely showed. For 300 years, the Zalthine have been proud members of this assembly. We have followed every rule, attended every meeting, participated in every discussion. We believed in the system. We believed that if we were peaceful and reasonable, we would be safe. Thren looked up at Representative Quill with eyes full of pain. 6 days ago, I watched my colony burn from space. I heard children screaming over the communication channels as our shields failed. I prepared to die, knowing that our last message would drift through space for days before anyone even heard it. And I thought about all those assembly meetings, all those diplomatic protocols, all those promises of cooperation and mutual respect. He turned to face the entire assembly. None of you came. We sent our distress signal and waited to die. But humans came. They didn't debate it. They didn't form a committee. They didn't check with the assembly for permission. They heard our call and they came, even though they were outnumbered, even though they might have died trying to save us. Thren's voice cracked with emotion. Commander Bennett and his crew risked their lives for people they had never met. Admiral Clark brought her entire fleet at maximum speed because strangers needed help. Human doctors treated our children with gentle hands even though those same humans had just destroyed 4 enemy ships. And now you lecture them about violence? The hall was completely silent. Even the representatives who had been most critical seemed uncomfortable. The Zalthine are withdrawing from the assembly, Thren announced, and gasps echoed through the hall. Not because we hate you or reject your ideals, but because we have learned a hard truth. Being peaceful is only possible when you have strength to back it up. The humans understand this. They don't love war. They hate it. But they're willing to fight when necessary to protect the innocent. He turned to look at Admiral Clark and Commander Bennett. The Zalthine are joining the Mutual Defense Alliance. We will stand with humanity and anyone else who believes that peace is worth defending. To those of you who think this is wrong, I say this: come visit our colony. See the empty homes where families used to live. Look at the memorial we're building for those who would have died if the humans hadn't come. Then tell me that diplomatic patience was the right answer. With that, Thren walked back to his seat. The hall erupted into chaos. Representatives were shouting at each other, some in support of Thren's words and others in opposition. Quill banged his gavel repeatedly, trying to restore order. Then something happened that nobody expected. Kef, the small Varini ambassador, stood up and walked to the center. His fur was bristling, a sign of agitation in his species. The Varini joined the alliance, Kef announced loudly. We have been attacked twice by the Kraviks. Twice we came to this assembly asking for help. Twice you offered sympathy and suggestions for diplomatic outreach. Meanwhile, our people died. No more. We stand with the humans. Rin, the tall Salthic, stood up next. His forearms spread wide in a gesture of determination. The Salthic joined as well. We have lost too much already. We will not lose more while waiting for diplomacy to save us. Then another ambassador stood. And another. And another. Within an hour, 12 species had publicly announced their intention to join the Mutual Defense Alliance. Most of them were younger species that had faced raids or attacks. All of them had grown tired of feeling helpless. Representative Quill looked shaken. The assembly had never seen such a mass departure before. Ambassador Thren, Admiral Clark, please. Let us not be hasty. The assembly can be reformed. We can create new protocols for mutual defense within the existing structure. Admiral Clark stood up and walked back to the podium. Her voice was respectful but firm. Representative Quill, we're not asking the assembly to choose. Species can be members of both the assembly and the alliance. The assembly serves important purposes for trade, cultural exchange, and diplomacy. But it was never designed to coordinate military defense, and we don't have time to redesign it. She pulled up a star chart showing the Kravix Dominion and the target worlds. The Kravix plan to attack in less than 3 months. If we wait for the assembly to form committees and draft new protocols, thousands of beings will die. The alliance is forming now today because our friends need protection now, not eventually. Kyle stepped forward to join Clark at the podium. Any species is welcome to join. The only requirements are simple. You commit to defending other alliance members if they're attacked. You share relevant defensive technology and tactics. And you train your people to work together with the alliance fleet. That's it. No complicated bureaucracy, no endless debates. Just a simple promise, we protect each other. An older representative, a floating jellyfish like being from the Morpheus species, spoke up. Her voice was curious rather than hostile. And what about offensive operations? Will this alliance launch attacks on the Kravix Dominion? Clark shook her head. The alliance is purely defensive. We won't attack the Kravix in their own territory. But we will defend our members and we will respond with overwhelming force if attacked. We want the Kravix and anyone else who might consider attacking us to understand one thing. The cost of attacking alliance members is too high. It's not worth it. Peace through strength, Quill said quietly, understanding finally showing in his voice. Exactly, Clark confirmed. We're not warmongers. We're guardians. There's a difference. The debate continued for several more hours, but the outcome was already decided. By the end of the day, 22 species had signed the Mutual Defense Charter. The document was simple and direct, written in clear language that every species could understand. The key points were straightforward. Any attack on one member would be considered an attack on all members. All members would maintain defensive fleets proportional to their populations. Technology and tactical knowledge would be shared freely among members. Humans would provide training and coordinate fleet operations until other species developed their own military expertise. Admiral Clark was named Supreme Commander of Alliance Defense Forces. It was a role she accepted with mixed feelings. She had never wanted to be a galactic military leader, but someone needed to coordinate the defense, and humans had the most military experience. Commander Kyle Bennett was promoted to captain, and given command of a new ship being built specifically for Alliance operations. The ship would be called the Sentinel, designed as a mobile command center that could coordinate multiple species' fleets in real time. News of the Alliance spread quickly through the galaxy. The Kravix Dominion, when they heard about it, initially dismissed it as meaningless. They were a powerful military force with hundreds of ships and thousands of warriors. What could a handful of peaceful species do, even with human help? They decided to test the new alliance quickly, before it could fully organize. 3 weeks after the alliance was formed, 6 Kravix warships attacked a small mining outpost in the Rigel sector. The outpost belonged to the Verini, one of the smallest alliance members. The attack began at midnight, station time. The Kravix ships appeared without warning and immediately began bombing the station's shields. They expected easy victory just like all their previous raids. But this time was different. This time, when the Verini station sent its distress call, 30 ships responded. Human ships, Zalthine ships, Salthic ships, and others, all working together under unified command. They arrived within 40 minutes, dropping out of faster-than-light speed in perfect formation. Captain Jake Morrison, the pilot who had performed so well during the Kepler 442 battle, now commanded the destroyer Swift Justice. He led the first wave of the counterattack. The human ships moved with their characteristic speed and precision, but this time they weren't fighting alone. The Zalthine ships provided electronic warfare support, jamming Kravik's communications and sensors. The Sulfic ships, with their superior shields, positioned themselves as mobile barriers, protecting the smaller vessels. The battle was over in 40 minutes. All 6 Kravik ships were captured or destroyed. Not a single Alliance vessel was lost. The Varini outpost suffered minor damage, but no casualties. The Kraviks were shocked. They had never seen anything like this coordination between multiple species. They were used to fighting scattered, disorganized opponents. The Alliance was something completely different. After the battle, the captured Kravik's commander was brought aboard the Swift Justice. Captain Morrison stood in front of the prisoner, his arms crossed. "Tell your leaders what happened here today," Morrison said calmly. "Tell them that attacking Alliance members means facing all of us together. Tell them that we..."